If you're watching us, you're here on France 24 on the day where France is reeling from its bloodiest attack on its home soil, bloodiest terror attack since 1961. 12 killed, 4 in critical condition, staff members at the satirical weekly Charlie Hebdo, as well as 2 police officers. We're in the company of Majid Messaouden, city councillor for the Paris suburb of Saint-Denis. Thank you for being with us. Socialist Senator Hélène Conway-Mouret, welcome back. Welcome back as well to Louis Bernard, the founder of the risk consultants Layer Cake, and an American in Paris, journalist and author Diane Johnstone. Welcome back to the show. Majid Messaouden, it's been a tough day for you in particular, since you knew very well two of those killed.
Yeah, I knew. First, I would like to say that I think my thoughts are for the families and friends of those who were killed today. I'm upset and sad. I knew particularly 2 persons, Chab and Bernard Maris. Bernard Maris used to teach me economics at the university, and he participated in building my way of thinking. So I'm pretty sad today and very angry because nothing can justify what happened today, and we don't have any word to qualify what happened. And I still not realize that 12 people died just because they did their job, and I'm very upset, and I don't have any word to...
Bernard Maris, who was here at France 24 no later than yesterday, he was a weekly guest on our business show, and I personally loved listening every Friday morning to his segments on France Inter
economist
Radio.
And what was interesting in his point of view is that he was not on the orthodox way of thinking, like all the person we hear on the other channels. He used to give us another way of thinking the economy, and he was very funny at school too. So I lose at least 2 people today, and I'm very sad.
All those killed, free thinkers. Whether or not you agreed with their political positions, those killed and those were silenced. They were household names, these cartoonists most notably.
Absolutely. I think everybody knows them, even though we didn't all have the luck to have met them or worked with them. I did know them, as I worked with some cartoonists from Cartooning for Peace. I think these people have a very important place in our democracy. And what happened today, for me, I'm exactly like what has been said. I share every word that you have said. I'm in shock. I'm sad. I'm angry as well, somehow, to feel that some cowards, because these people, even though they may be trained killers, because to kill so many in so little time, they must have been trained. They knew exactly what they were doing. They planned those killings, but they killed people who were not able to defend themselves. That's why I feel they're cowards.
But it wasn't exactly a blind attack, was it? This is a newspaper that had already been a target, that was under police protection.
Yes, but they didn't just kill journalists. I think they wanted for the act to be more symbolic. They wanted to hit at what our democracy stands for, the values and that are at the base of our republic here. And I think that's really what they aimed at. If it was a terrorist act, they would have planted a bomb in a train station, have attacked people in the street. They planned this attack knowing very well that those journalists were all gathered today, because the journal is coming out tomorrow. It's the day of the publication as well of the Canard Enchaîné, which is another paper. So all of that was...
which Cabu contributed, one of those killed.
Absolutely. So I think all of that has another dimension than just killing innocent journalists. But unfortunately for these people, or fortunately for us, maybe, what we see tonight, these thousands of people, and I would have gone if I hadn't come here tonight, I would have been part of these gatherings because I think that's our best fight against terror, just to show that we're not afraid, that what they did, even though they struck at the heart of our democracy, of our country, they killed some friends for some people, we're not afraid. And I think that's the message that these people need to hear.
Diane Johnstone, France has been the target before of attacks in 1995 and 1986. This is different, though.
Well, this is different because it seems even more gratuitous, if I may say so. I mean, it's soft target. I would like to say that perhaps here we can talk about, there are two aspects that we might discuss. One is the emotion of the thing. That's the first, because it's just happens, and the emotion is very strong. And then afterwards, because we called in there to talk, perhaps we should analyze a bit. But the emotion is certainly very strong because, as my colleague, Sasha's colleague said, these cartoonists, some of them anyway, were really household names. I had a telephone call from my daughter, who's French, and she said, "Ah, le grand dodu est mort," because the character of Cabu was known to people. I mean, these Cabu was 76, I think, and Wolinski was 80 years old. There's a generation that has seen these cartoons. These are very, very familiar cartoonists. It's not just anybody. And I think that makes people feel very strong. And Wolinski always had these very sweet cartoons. I mean, there was nothing aggressive in what he did at all. So this seems particularly moving, I think, to people. But maybe after that I'd talk about analysis. But first I would mention that this is a very strong emotion for people.
No, let's pick up on that. And before I go to you, Louis Bernard, I want to call in Olivia Salazar-Winspear, who has been looking at this. Olivia, you just heard Diana Johnston mention it. Just how much these were household names. Yeah,
Cabu in particular, like you said, not only a cultural reference for a generation, but for actually many generations. Because as well as a political satirist, in Le Canard enchaîné, Charlie Hebdo, any newspaper of repute in France, really, he drew for them. He also appeared on children's television in the 1980s and the 1990s. He was so quick with his pen that he could draw live on television. So that means he was this reference for, like you say, generations of people in France. So it's not only a huge loss for journalism today, these cartoonists, it's also a loss for cultural proponents of French culture.
Charlie Hebdo itself, no stranger, as we were saying, to controversy.
Yeah, Charlie Hebdo, which, sadly has become more known for its very controversial covers than the investigative journalism inside in recent years, sadly. I mean, political cartoons are as old as the printing press itself, but this had become... It's important to underline that they have a real place in the French print landscape. That is... They feature in every daily, weekly, monthly. It's not just Charlie Hebdo, despite the fact that the people working at Charlie Hebdo were perhaps arguably leaders in their field. And this real attention around their critique of extremism and Islam, any religious extremism, it's a recent thing. It's the last 10, 15 years. But since their creation in the early 70s, they've always been taking potshots at all religions, all races, all politicians from every stripe. I mean, they mocked the nativity story at Christmas with a special Christmas cover with the baby Jesus and the Virgin Mary in a pretty vulgar pose. They've done a fake poster for Marine Le Pen, a candidacy poster. So it's not just Islam that they target, although it's Islam that has brought them widespread attention in recent years, like James touched upon their reprinting of the Muhammad cartoons in 2006, which saw them, incur legal action. And
we were struggling to find an American or a British equivalent.
It is difficult to find an equivalent because, like I say, this political satire, political caricatures, is something that's quite French. It's an integral part of the French daily print experience. And Charlie Hebdo, almost the leader of the pack there, always never stepping down, even after the controversy in 2011 with the Sharia Hebdo edition. They kept their line.
Diana Johnston, it could be, as you heard Olivia, they could be quite violent, these cartoons.
Well, actually, I must confess, I didn't like it.
Wasn't your cup of tea?
Absolutely not. I mean, the vulgarity is just not something I appreciate, but...
Their argument is that they are equal opportunities vulgarity, targeting the vulgarity at everyone, so...
But nobody had to buy Charlie Hebdo when it had its place.
personally, I stopped buying it 10 years ago, but we had debates with Shab, particularly about Islam, because I thought, and I still think, and many other people think that we were living a particular period with a spread of Islamophobia in this country. And we thought that Charlie Hebdo has a responsibility because it was one of the last left-wing paper. And when they draw the prophet, we thought they crossed a line. And we told them in the debate that...
Sorry, who's we?
I did it, my friends did it. I wrote to Sharp to tell him that he made a mistake, but he continued because he thought he has the right to do it, and he has the right to do it. So nothing could justify what happened today. But no, of course, that's what I want to say. But as they had the right to draw whatever they wanted to draw, we had the right as citizens to tell them that we will not agree at a certain point. I mean that we were able to discuss with them, to tell them that we did not agree. But what happened today is something that we can never accept. I was against censorship of any paper or any people of Zemmour or Welbeck or Dieudonné, because I think censorship is not the answer. And I think that the cowards that did it today are not people that supported people that are against what they thought. So I think that Charlie Hebdo had the right to exist, and we had the right to criticize it.
Olivier Salzar-Unspear, I want to thank you because we're going to have to go to Cairo in a minute, but thank you for that look at the publication itself. We're going to turn to Cairo and say hello to Ibrahim Najm. He's advisor to the Egyptian Mufti. Thank you for joining us here on France 24. You just heard Majid Messaouden, city councillor for the Paris suburb of Saint-Denis, saying how he stopped buying Charlie Hebdo. He thought they'd crossed the red line, but that what was perpetrated today was the act of cowards.
Our condolences to the French people and to your good self and your reputable channel. As a representative of the Egypt's Dar el-Ifta and the Grand Mufti of Egypt, Dar el-Ifta is the world's leading authority on Islamic legal interpretation. We issued a couple of hours ago, in the face of this coward acts and the horrendous attack on Charlie Hebdo, we issued a strongly worded press release condemning this reckless act, and we said that violence in the name of religion must be opposed at every turn. We said also that violence is antithetical not to the spirit but also the very letter of Islamic teachings. And we said also that extremism knows no particular faith. It is a perversion of the human condition and must be dealt with as such. And we finally said that we are all in one ship. We are all responsible collectively for fighting against this deviance. So we have to work together to eradicate this menace, and the burden must be shared by all of us.
All right, Ibrahim Najm, I want to thank you for joining us there from Cairo. Hélène Conway-Mouret, the reaction there. We also heard reactions from the Gulf states denouncing this attack. Where's this going to go now? Obviously, we're in the manhunt portion right now. We don't know who did it.
Today felt like a very long day. There was a shock this morning, and then those images, and then the sadness, and then all these emotions. And you're right, it's a day of emotion, but at the same time, it doesn't prevent from thinking. And I think what's happening, the fact that it's the day of the meeting of the heads of the various religious orders in France.
There's a regularly scheduled meeting where they have New
Yes,
Year wishes for the
absolutely.
at the presidential palace.
François Hollande met them today, and it was the only meeting I think he didn't cancel because it was important for them to meet. And I think what's happening, this solidarity that is being expressed today, is very important. That's the way we can fight terrorism and be the strongest ourselves. I spent the 31st of December, 1st and 2nd of January in Chad, Niger, and Mali with the French soldiers who are there. And by talking to them on the 31st, they were saying that they were there for peace. And it's very strong to hear from a soldier who is somebody who has a license to kill, in effect, and be killed, unfortunately, as well, to say that they are there for peace. They are there just to fight terrorists and make sure that there is enough security for civilians, for those countries to be able to operate normally. But the threat is very, very important there. And I was just thinking back of the criticisms against France for their action in Mali, but when you're in Africa, there's not one African that will say that France was wrong to move into Mali and prevent those terrorist groups from taking over that country. Had they done so, where would we be today? They would be so much stronger, because here we have just individuals who are part of this international movement today, that get the training, that get the mental training as well as physical training to be able to kill so efficiently. But we need to react, and it's only an international reaction that will be able to fight it.
Of course, it's difficult, Louis Bernard. As we speak, there's no claim of responsibility yet. We don't know who this particular adversary is.
No, we don't know. What we know is that this group of people are very well organized. I mean, it was sadly very well executed, if I may say so. And so you have, small groups of people who are very much against everything that Charlie Hebdo stood for, and quite frankly, what France is based on, which is freedom of the press and freedom to make fun of everyone, even if sometimes they don't like it that much. And I think the biggest reaction that we are seeing right now as we speak on Place de la République is the best tribute we can give as French people to those who died today, is that these ideologies will never win in France, and contrary to some people who publish books about this kind of ideologies these days, people are flocking onto the Place de la République saying, okay, I'm a big fan of Charlie Hebdo, even if we didn't laugh that much about everything. It's a fundamental right, and I think the French people will keep on writing books, reading them, going to the movies, and enjoying those freedom that the people in Charlie Hebdo fought so hard for.
All right. Later on, the French president went to the headquarters of Charlie Hebdo. François Hollande, who spoke in the company of the Interior Minister and the Mayor of Paris. All right. The president earlier, who said that it was a terrorist act and that it was an attack against universal values. Diana Johnstone.
Well, yes, certainly there's no question that French people are overwhelmingly against this. I don't think there's even necessary to say. I mean, everybody's going to say things that are unnecessary to say, which is, this is horrible. But the question is, this looks like a really professional provocation. These are very professional killers. Were they really so offended by, was it really they're being offended by Charlie Hebdo? This is a very symbolic attack. It's meant to be symbolic. It's meant to provoke what? It's a provocation. What is it meant to provoke? And I think we should ask that question. It's not meant to provoke that we're all going to become Muslims. Obviously, that's not what it's meant to provoke. It's meant to provoke perhaps the opposite. Look how provocative IS has been in their beheadings that they've put on. There seems to be a general desire to cause as much mayhem as possible in the world. And this, we don't know. We hope they capture these people, but even if they capture them, it's not sure that we'll know who ordered them to do this or something like that. But the provocation is clear, and this is. What is this going to provoke? Is it going to provoke ultra-security measures like in the United States? Is it going to make France into a police state? I hope not. But, you know, it could be meant to provoke that. You know, there's lots of history of acts like this that whatever they're meant to provoke, they may provoke something else. You don't really know. But I think it isn't a question that our values are attacked. Of course, this has nothing to do with our values. This is just plain murder. But it is meant to cause a reaction, and I think we should try to think of what that reaction, you know, why, and not react the way they want us to react, whatever it is.
Well, I agree with what you are saying now, but I'm afraid I'm scared about the consequences that can have these acts upon the Muslims in France, for example. I think that we don't hear enough that the two people that did it today are not Muslims. They can't be Muslim and kill people. These people, as Andrew Breivik was not Christian or Catholic when he killed in Denmark. It was in Denmark.
Norway.
Norway. Sorry. So we have to say these things. Muslims in France have not, don't have to apologize for what happened today. And some people are starting to ask them to apologize and to say if they condemn or not what happened today. And I think this is very dangerous.
The head of the far right, she commented earlier, Marine Le Pen, saying that it's time to open a full debate. We should liberate our speech when it comes to Islamic fundamentalism.
Yeah, as they do in Sweden and in Germany these days. And it's very dangerous. As long as some people, some politics, and some medias will show Islam as a threat in our country, we won't have a peaceful atmosphere and climate in this country. So please, we have to say that Islam has nothing to do with what happened today.
But picking up on Diana Johnstone's point, these attackers knew that there would be this horror and this backlash. So why do they want it?
They are not Muslim, so they don't care. They don't care about what people in France will live. I don't know if they are French. I don't know where they live. I don't know what they want. What I know is that all the Muslims in the country will pay for what they did. And I think this is very dangerous. So I think we should have the response that had the Prime Minister in Norway when Breivik killed these people. I just read it. It's 2 lines. We will respond to terror with more democracy, more openness, and tolerance. And I think that that's the response we have to say and we have to give today, and not let people continue to see Muslims in this country as a threat, because they are not.
Yeah, I share this opinion. I think people cannot kill in the name of religion.
No.
I mean, the Quran or the Bible doesn't incite human beings to kill one another. So
24 hours ago, by the way, we were talking about the rise of these anti-Islamic demonstrations in Germany. And one of the panelists, a sociologist, said that what was before hate speech was always centered around ethnic reasons. Now it seems to be centered around religion. So why is the discussion now about religion?
Because it's just so easy to take a Muslim, if these people are Muslims, to say, well, it's in the name of Islam. It's not in the name of Islam that they committed these murders. It's in the name of an ideology that they believe in, that they feel that the freedom, not just the freedom of speech, but the freedom that we have is not something that they want to share in the type of country that, or their ideal country. So here we have fanatics, we have trained killers. I believe they are trained killers to be so efficient, unfortunately, who committed a murder. Indeed, they wanted it to be symbolic. Otherwise, as I said, but I'm repeating myself now, they would have just planted a bomb somewhere, and the effect will have been quite different from what it is today. That they wanted to hit at the heart of that freedom. They wanted to have an international coverage of their act, and I think they succeeded in that. And then we need to be very careful, and I think in politics, us members of parliament, we need to be very careful that there's no amalgam between, indeed, Islam, Muslims, and these fanatics. These are terrorists. They are people who just think differently in the name of, but it's not in the name of a religion that is shared by millions of people who just carry out their religion in their day life, in following the principles of that religion. That is that you love the other, you don't kill him.
Louis Bernard, you mentioned earlier that it was well executed. So
no, it was very well executed. So that's why we fear that the manhunt, I mean the police investigation, is going to be quite a tough one. First, because they wore masks, their weapons were quite, military grade, very good weaponry, and the way it was carried out shows.
What chilled people is that video where you see them come back and finish off one of the policemen.
Exactly. That particular point, what we see on tape, because obviously there is no footage of what happened inside the building, but that only tells us how professional they were, very well trained. I seem to think that they are French because they were speaking in French afterwards quite clearly with no accent, so I think they are French nationals. So that gives you an idea of the complexity of their training, what kind of ideology they must have in order to be so good at killing in cold blood, fellow nationals, if they are indeed French nationals. And so if they have organized their attacks so precisely, I fear that their getaway has been organized as well. So let's hope the manhunt will not last too long, and let's hope that they can't carry out more attacks. But I'm sure they are, hidden very well.
So the chance of catching them.
No. I mean, the French police have their number one priority today. You mentioned yourself that the FBI is going to help, and I know there are exchanges between the intelligence forces, and every cop in France is doing his or her job right now in finding them, and the population is going to call in if they see anything, and I'm sure everyone in France is going to call in if they see something suspicious. But yes, they are very professional, and we're dealing with a very serious inside threat.
All right, you were saying the FBI willing to help, and again, those reactions coming from all around the world.
What happened today in Paris is a barbaric attack against the values under which we live together in Europe. We condemn this. Our thoughts are with the people in France, especially those who have to mourn victims. We will do everything possible to help France in such a difficult situation.
This horrific attack is meant to divide. We must not fall into that trap. This is a moment for solidarity around the world. We must stand strong for freedom of expression and tolerance, and stand against the forces of division and hate.
The values that we share with the French people, a belief, a universal belief in freedom of expression, is something that can't be silenced because of the senseless violence of the few.
Diana Johnstone, earlier there was one person in the neighborhood near where the headquarters of Charlie Hebdo are, who told our reporter, Georgia Calvin-Smith, that for her this day reminds her of September 11th, 2001.
Oh, I'm sure it does, but I hope that it doesn't lead to the same result. Because I was in Canada right after 9/11, and the kind of psychosis that developed. I mean, people were even saying, you've got to eat ice cream against your stress because of the terrorists. I mean, I hope that the French will stay more calm in this and not become totally hysterical, and then have the kind of security measures that make it impossible to fly anymore. I mean, it's very difficult, obviously. In fact, you can't prevent everything, and trying to prevent everything simply makes life unbearable for your citizens.
Louis Bernard, you must be on both sides of that argument because you go to meetings, and on the one hand, and the pressure is on the police because, after all, security was a little bit relaxed in recent weeks for a while. But you were saying that for every attack that's perpetrated, there's what, 15 or 20 that are foiled?
Okay, let me first say that the police forces paid a price today because 2 policemen were killed in the same attack, and our thoughts go to them as well, and I think they should be remembered as well. From what I hear, for every one attack to succeed, I mean, it's been years since we have had an attack on French soil. Many are, prevented, and the intelligence forces, domestic intelligence forces, are doing a great job in France as we speak, and are routinely stopping attacks without anyone noticing. So let's hope that France does not become.
There was a recent bill passed, for instance, for stepped up internet monitoring. Yeah. Is that going to be effective?
I don't know how much that works, and I certainly know that the people of Charlie Hebdo would certainly oppose any censorship of the internet. And where do you stop? Where do you start? It's hard to say. But I know that religious people who have fanatic tendencies are very well watched by the French police, who do an amazing job on the ground.
And in Colin,
that's the way to do it.
What do you do in terms of, since the internet is such a vector, the government?
Well, yeah, we had a very long discussions in the Senate about this piece of legislation, and of course there was the freedom of expression and so on, and there was some opposition. At the same time, the basic concept for this was to help families who had youngsters who were brainwashed, because this is what is being done through the internet, and we're then preparing to go away to Syria. So the whole concept was to try to prevent and help those families. We know very well that the technology today doesn't help us, but maybe in 6 months' time we will be in a position to indeed, when there is such a website which is identified, which does this brainwashing in a very efficient way, to be able to stop it. Today, it is not possible.
It should be stopped, you're saying, those websites?
Those, yeah, but they're very few, but they have been proven to be quite efficient. I mean, there's more than 1,000 young people, and most of them are not actually Muslims who have gone out to Syria. Absolutely. So, which means that these brainwashing systems actually work well. So this is why it was put in place, but it was really kind of a gesture towards families who are absolutely desperate. They don't know how to stop their youngsters going away and fighting a war which is not theirs.
So, Diana Johnstone, you were worried earlier that perhaps you don't want to see France have the equivalent of a Patriot Act where there's too many civil rights that are encroached, yet you do have to go after them, and you do have to watch these websites.
Yes, but another point that I dare make, I'm a little afraid to make it at this point, but I do think that there's also a question of French foreign policy. And the fact is that French foreign policy, because it's been basically following the United States, has been very ambiguous as far as Islamic extremists is concerned. I mean, France led the war in Libya, which has been welcomed all kinds of extremists. And in fact, the war in Mali, I don't blame the French for going to Mali, but they went there partly because of Libya having created the mess. And we're very ambiguous about Syria. I think maybe if the Western powers themselves are more united against extreme terrorism, that might help.
Majid Messaouden, is part of the answer to what happened today in the 11th arrondissement in Paris lie in the Middle East and how we handle places like Syria?
Well, there's maybe a link, but as Nicole say, they are. I don't know. They follow their own ideology, so they will find any purpose to impose a threat and death. But I'm not sure that the censorship of some website would be the solution.
No,
because I think
it's not a solution. It's just one way to help families.
Yes, but
today.
It means that we arrive too late. it's part of a process.
Yes.
So what happened before in the livelihood of these youngsters that make them become what they are. The majority of those who are in Syria or Iraq have not been raised in Muslim families, but in atheist or Christian families. So this has nothing to do with Islam. That's the proof. But that shows that nothing was done to prevent these behaviors. And I think that the censorship of the website can be something that we can do, but this will not help in stopping the spread of the fanaticism in some countries and in some cities.
No, it was just one action and maybe a bad example, but it was a series of measures that are going towards helping families who are totally at a loss, don't know what to do to stop their youngsters going away. I just want to add to the Western countries rallying together. I think it is important at this point that Qatar and Saudi Arabia and these countries also are part of this and condemn these acts of terrorism. I think it is very important because there is this kind of...
In other times, they finance these extremists. They finance them.
They condemn with one hand and give the money with the other.
Talking about ambiguous position for the Western countries, I think others have an ambiguous position.
Well, our ambiguous position is precisely the relations we have with Qatar and Saudi Arabia.
They're just afraid of the image that they can have outside. The condemns that we receive from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, all these countries, I'm not sure that they would have condemned if the people had not shouted Allah Akbar when they killed. So I think that they felt obliged, they feel forced to condemn these acts because of the image they want to have in the Western country. But as Diana says, they condemn today, but during months and years, they financed the more extremist people in some countries to put the most extremists on the top of some countries. So I think we must...
Just one word, because the United States, leading NATO, has been systematically destroying the secular states in the Middle East. And, I mean, we've
How
just...
so?
Well, Libya was the first country to call on Interpol to arrest bin Laden. Gaddafi, his main political enemy, was a Muslim extremist. In a way, even Gaddafi was relatively secular if you compare what you've got now. Iraq was secular. Syria is secular. And we've systematically been attacking and destroying the countries that were fighting against Islamic extremism.
There were dictators at the head of these countries.
They were also dictators.
Yes, please.
Yes. Of course, everybody's a dictator. I mean, you know, most of the world is dictators. This thing about dictators, it's not our job to go around and put democracy everywhere.
I'm sure, though, that the people in Benghazi...
I'm not saying that these wars were fair. I'm saying that...
I would.
I
would say that...
When we see the result in Iraq and in Libya and in other countries, I'm not sure it's in Afghanistan. I'm not sure these wars were very
useful.
Louis Bernard.
Well, if we go on to foreign policy, I'm sure we have to be very cautious about what we're saying. I'm sure the people in Benghazi are quite happy with the decision of France.
Well, the people in other parts of Libya are very unhappy.
No, that's
so
true.
You take sides against one group against another group.
A final point on all of this. After the horrific acts of today, is France's policy going to change in any way?
You mean foreign policy?
Yeah.
It is not. It has been very consistent over the years, and there is a consensus on the fight against terrorism, the place of France that it can play among other countries in the West. And maybe some errors are made, but I think to fight for democracy and the fight against terrorism is the right one, and I don't think that France is wrong on that one.
We're going to leave it there. Hélène Conway-Mouret, I want to thank you for joining us. Diana Johnston, Louis Bernard, Majed Messaouden. Thank you for being with us here for this special edition here on France 24.
Hey, An act of exceptional barbarity has been committed here in Paris.
Les secours sont sur place. Il y aurait de nombreuses victimes.